Hello everyone, what is happening? I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video here at Most Amazing Top 10. Now don't we all love a bit of fast food and pizza? I'm pretty sure growing up, whenever someone asked me what meal I would eat if I had to for the rest of my life every day, I would always say pizza. Chuck E. Cheese is a household name in America as a fun pizzeria and entertainment center. The restaurant serves pizza as well as other food and has a bunch of arcade games and amusement rides inside as well, and a band of animatronics that sing. But as with every good thing on this channel, there are a lot of conspiracy theories about Chuck E. Cheese, so let's get into it. Do remember to like and subscribe to the channel and top 10 Hindi videos as well guys, but without further ado, this is the top 10 scary Chuck E. Cheese theories. Starting us off with number 10 is Chucky himself. There is something wrong with Chucky guys. So when the animatronics are up there performing, there's an electric version of Chucky, but for a more user-friendly, child-engaging experience, there is usually an employee wearing a Chucky suit going around the restaurant as well, interacting with the kids, talking to them, making them laugh, etc. But when the store closes and the lights go off, what actually happens in there? According to the user Uber Chained Films, who used to work as a night watch officer, he claimed that one night he heard weird sounds coming from the arcade area and he found the animatronic Chucky moving around the floor while staring at the security camera. Other employees have claimed that in some restaurants the band is actually bolted to the stage, yet they still find Chucky missing from the stage from time to time. The night watch officer quit 3 days later and has avoided Chuck E. Cheese's ever since. And to be honest, judging from his account, it looks like Chucky could very well stab you in your sleep if you're not careful. Coming in at number 9 is the ball pit. I can safely put up my hands and say I loved playing in any sort of ball pit when I was younger. Literally as soon as I'd see one, I'd make a beeline for it and just dive right in there. It's a lot of fun, that is undeniable, but as a kid you don't really think about whether what you're diving into is clean or not, or if it even gets cleaned at all. Well, according to some theories, the ball pits at Chuck E. Cheese restaurants never get cleaned ever. I'm sorry, what? What do you mean they never get cleaned ever? No, that's exactly what I mean. As a place where kids are playing in, that's a lot of bacteria and sickness getting passed around in these balls. Countless past employees have posted their ball pit poop stories on Reddit. One said there's more poop in the ball pit than you would ever expect. Well, that's just brilliant considering I didn't expect any to begin with. And another user said the ball pit is never clean. She had seen it being cleaned once, where they put all the balls into a net, then put them in the back of a truck, which was then put through a car wash. And that was about all the cleaning they were gonna get. I don't have any kids, but when I do, I feel like I'm gonna stay away from any sort of ball pit ever. I enjoyed it, but they can't. At number 8, we have the future of Chuck E. Cheese. Now many people may not know this, but Chuck E. Cheese was initially founded by Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari. He wanted to merge the market of food and games, but then realized he was selling arcade games for $1,000 or $2, and then they would end up making the owner 15 to 20k in its lifetime. So he started Chuck E. Cheese in order to reap the benefits of his arcade games and beat out competition. Smart guy, I have to say. The idea of pizza and games was solely tailored to kids, and the animatronic band was introduced as entertainment for the parents. And a lot of people say that the band is sort of the restaurant's downfall. CEC became so focused on Chucky and the band that the game sort of took a back seat. Had this not happened though, people have theorized that Chuck E. Cheese could have been one of the best gaming and food establishments ever to exist, better than any of the game dens available to us now. But Chucky stopped that from ever being a reality and made it into the mouse-centered monster it is today. Filling our number 7 slot are the Chucky mascots. If you're lucky enough to work as a mascot for a sports team or a mascot in general, I pray that you work somewhere where they at least wash or at least dry clean your costume, because that is not the case at Chuck E. Cheese. I've read countless posts on Reddit now from ex-employees about this dreaded suit and how it never gets cleaned. Redditor Tragic Symphony said they once tried it on during their orientation and you're literally drenched in sweat by the time you take it off, so obviously the inside of the costume smells like a dead animal of some kind. Appetizing. So many of them have theorized that these suits drive employees crazy if you're the one stuck as Chucky every day of the week. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Bonjour_yo on Reddit even said once her coworker came in for his shift as Chucky, but he came in tripping on acid and then put the suit on and started throwing candy at the party in the restaurant. Whether it's the bad karma of the previous people who've been Chucky Chucky or whatever, it's no surprise that people leave this job as often as they do. And not to mention the amount of times they get hit in places that really hurt by little kids. All in all, not a great time. Now at number 6 is the playpen. Well, not really the playpen, but I didn't really know what else to call the area where the carousel and the slides are. And a lot goes down in the play area, let me tell you. And this theory claims that when your child enters a Chuck E. Cheese, they will either be directly exposed to feces and bodily fluids or drugs. Yup. At a Chuck E. Cheese in Belleville, Illinois, a child actually found a baggie with a white substance in it on the carousel, and the mother claimed the management refused to call the police over the issue and told them just to throw the baggie away. More ex-employees on Reddit have told stories about how kids have shat on the slides and crawl tubes and how it's trickled down and other kids have slid on it like they're none the wiser. Peeing inside there is a daily occurrence, and when things are busy, it takes them even more time for employees to get to it and clean it up. User I Am Infamy remembers when a kid got kicked in the face and there was a trail of blood going down the tubes that just dried up before anyone actually cleaned it. There are a lot more horror stories about more drugs and bodily fluids at Chuck E. Cheese, but I guess the moral of the story is either don't take your kids there or sanitize them thoroughly after you leave. Coming at number 5 are the arcade games. So if you've ever played a claw game where you have to maneuver the claw and grab something in order to win, you know that every time it's like you're winning, and then the claw magically loses grip and drops your prize right before you can get it. Darn. Well, for every claw game there's a yellow box that actually controls the pressure of the claw, so if you turn it left it decreases the pressure and turning it right increases it. And obviously all the employees at Chuck E. Cheese know this. And of course, what do most minimum wage employees do at work? Get bored. Coming from an ex-retail employee, I second and third that statement. So the theory states that whoever is in charge of the arcade area that day always tampers with the claw just so they can be entertained when people flood in and out, getting more and more frustrated that they aren't winning anything. Sadistic, but I see the appeal. At number 4 is the sex den. Probably not the first thing you think of when you think about Chuck E. Cheese, and I honestly don't blame you, but here we go. According to Reddit's BryGuy2289, who used to work there in high school, there is in fact a sex den in every Chuck E. Cheese. There's only one room in the restaurant that doesn't have any security cameras, and that's the costume room. The costume room, or as other people know it as the sex den for employees and horny high school kids. To the point that everyone just knew it was a thing, that if they wanted to go somewhere and do it, Chuck E. Cheese was the place to go. So much so that 4 teenagers filmed a Chuck E. Cheese sex tape in the said sex den. In case you were wondering, they were wearing the costume heads and nothing else. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't take your kids to Chuck E. Cheese, I'm just saying based on this theory of the sex den, you may want to double check if anyone is going at it in their costume room before you bring your kids in there. Filling our number 3 slot is the Born and Bred Crime Attractor. That name even sounds like the name of one of the arcade games you find in there. But anyway, believe it or not, a lot of crime takes place at Chuck E. Cheese, which is pretty ironic since it's marketed as a kid-friendly safe place. Let me summarize just some things that have happened at various Chuck E. Cheese establishments over the years. In 1993, Nathan Dunlap, a former employee, got fired and then came back to the restaurant and shot 5 of his ex-co-workers. There are so many cases of sexual assault involving kids at this place, I'm not even going to talk about one case specifically. In 2015, a woman drove her car into a ditch and their tires flew through the window of a Chuck E. Cheese, injuring 3 kids. Customers have started brawls against the employees on multiple occasions, whether that was because of a malfunctioning game or photo machine or because they were told to keep it down. Public indecency has been a thing, and I could go on and on, but I won't. But the point is, the theory claims that because of how attractive Chuck E. Cheese is in terms of what it offers, I mean games and food, what's not to like, that it's a magnet for crime and has been since it opened and will be until it closes. So people want it shut down now because the rate of crime at these establishments is seriously increasing. Now at number 2 is who is Chucky. Now sometimes there is someone assigned to be Chucky and that's their only job at the restaurant, and other times the employees take turns in being Chucky. But one thing we can all agree on is that the suit smells like a bad smelling armpit mixed with rotten cheese. Legitimately. But anyway, suit stench aside, apparently it's not that hard to get your hands on your very own Chucky suit. I don't know who'd want one, but That's fine, I'm not judging you. There was a case told by ex-employee and Reddit user Bob the Pillager about his restaurant where the human Chuck E. Cheese had been acting weirdly enthusiastic that day. He was hugging the kids, having a good time, but then he got a bit too into it, becoming quite aggressively close and huggy with the kids, and they found out it wasn't one of the restaurant's employees under the suit, it was actually a random man who was a pedophile. Moral of the story, Chucky may not be who you think he is, and always check under the mouse head before you let your child near an animatronic mouse. And finally at number 1 is recycled pizza. Now this is probably the most well-known theory that's come out about Chuck E. Cheese in the last few years, so I thought it rightfully took number 1. Well-known YouTuber Shane Dawson made a video about this, suggesting that employees use leftover pizza slices left on people's tables and form new pizzas with them. There is no evidence of this except a picture of a full-served pizza showing the slices not making a uniform circle, and in fact having a lot of disparity in terms of where the crust lines up. The restaurant chain has responded to these claims, obviously denying them, and even past employees have jumped in to help and also claimed that the slices aren't recycled. Despite all that, more and more people are posting pictures of their uneven pizzas when they go there and continuously adding more spark to the fire. What do you guys think? Recycled pizza or completely freshly made? And that's all for today's video, guys. I hope this hasn't discouraged you from visiting your local Chuck E. Cheese, because that really wasn't the point, but I do hope it has shed a different light on your Chuck E. Cheese experience. Now let me know in the comments below if you've ever had a weird experience at the restaurant, but as always, I'm Eamon Hassan and I'll see you next time. Bye!